Previously on the Game On podcast.
So we have to ask. We've spoken to a couple of players who cut their teeth a little bit in the VFL before they made their move over to the SANFL. But what was it like playing at some of the suburban grounds back in the day? Because it's sort of lost a little bit these days with only 3 or 4 venues being used.
Yes, it was daunting. I remember that, going to places like Windy Hill and in particular, my last game was Cardinia Park down at the Catteries. We got that was the only game I played in my last
82,
year. 82, and we got flogged by Geelong. And I stood a bloke by the name of Gary Malarkey.
Good player.
WA boy. He was built like a proverbial, you know what, and he was very, very, very hard to stand. And but the crowds were incredibly parochial, and then you had your Windy Hills, and I played a couple of games at Moorabbin, and of course at Victoria Park, Collingwood's home ground, and Princess Park with Carlton and Hawthorn were there, I think. And then you'd head out to Waverley and you'd sink 3 inches into the soggy turf out there, you know. So.
Welcome to the Game On podcast. This is sport from all angles. Coming up on this week's episode, the tackle is back on the agenda with players getting off last week, and this week was still an unknown. The Crows come for the clouds with Josh Rochella kicking the game winner, but has it come at a cost? And Port Adelaide shake off a persistent Richmond after a very, very tight start, and Ken Hinkley makes his thoughts known. Let's get started. Hi, I'm Pete, and welcome to tonight's episode, and once again joined by Malcolm, and a slightly different opening to what we've done previously, but we're going to finish off with Des, and obviously previously our guest from last week, and talking about the 1988 Escort Cup Grand Final.
He's a good man, Des. Greatly appreciate his time, and I've always enjoyed spending a bit of quality time with the great man over many years.
Absolutely. All right, let's get into our hot topic for the week. Concussion is back on the agenda, mate. 2 weeks ago, obviously, we saw the tackles that ended up going all the way as far as appeals and all that kind of stuff went. And this last week, we weren't sure what to expect, and yet 3 clubs have now got the please explain from the AFL.
Yeah, a couple of important things out of that. Let's remember that both Cameron and Bedford didn't get off. They were found guilty.
Yes.
It was a legal loophole because, and just use the Cameron one as the example, if on the Tuesday night they had said, right, that had the potential to cause injury, therefore there's no grounds of appeal on an error of law. So that it was such a minor thing of wording got them off. So they didn't get found not guilty. I reckon that's a really important call.
All right, so let's just talk about the tackles for a second. The Bedford one, I think we sort of all agree that one was probably the outlier as far as
he was the unluckiest one.
The fabric of the game where he did go for the tackle. He looked like he did everything right, but the consequence, obviously, of the player getting concussion is the byproduct of that. The Cameron one was a little bit different as far as it looked like he was driving him into the ground, but the player's momentum was going backwards as well. And this is where, for me, it sort of created that grey area.
It was. I agree. There's a grey area in it. But for mine, Cameron still, the last part of his tackle, I thought personally was unnecessary. I could understand far more why he got found guilty than Bedford. But that was my own take of it. But also, let's also defend the AFL here. On the Bedford one, the clubs were actually sent a very similar example to say, well, no, the duty of care still is on the tackler if concussion occurs. Now, let's also remember the AFL are absolutely shitting themselves with litigation stuff. When you've got lawyers out there desperately trying to get players to sign a board, and it's massive. You know, people just don't understand what's happening behind the scenes with this whole litigation issue.
Fast forward 1 week, we sort of weren't sure what to expect after what happened last week. 3 or 4 examples was probably the Keys tackle in the
I
Adelaide
thought he was
Essendon
lucky.
game.
I've got to be honest. I thought he was lucky. I could see a bit both ways there.
Do you think it was a little bit more because of what happened the week before that it got a little bit more of
Leeway wise?
Leeway?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I thought he was lucky. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then the Adelaide Essendon game again where Dawson gets a delayed concussion?
Yeah, but that was where the guy bumped. It was just that bumped into. Now, people are saying, well, Stringer should be suspended because he was the one who bumped the other Essendon player into Dawson. I thought that's just footy. Get on with it. I thought there was nothing.
I agree with you, but then based on what we've seen previously,
I thought that was a little different
because of the what do you call it? The conclusion or the outcome.
Yeah, outcome based.
It never got asked, so it was a little bit more leeway this week. And then the third one was probably the McKay one, which did not look good at all from everybody. Doesn't matter whether you're a commentator, a spectator, or anybody watching on TV. He looked dazed and confused.
Yeah, it was a little bit hard to work out there, that one as well. It does seem to be a state of confusion. I can't deny that overall, but I just still think the AFL have just got to keep going hard because the voice of reason in Phil Davis, and Phil Davis is an extremely intelligent individual, he did say, well, hang on, all you people are complaining about Cameron and Bedford.
Yep.
There'd been 7 reports for tackles at this time of the year compared to 33 last year. Players are changing. They are adapting. They are improving. So I think that's a pretty important point as well.
Yep. All right. My last one on that is concussion, obviously, back in the spotlight. We've talked about it off air and we've had previous guests talk about concussion. This has got a long way to go, hasn't it?
Oh, massive. And I think we have been very responsible. You know, we've had Sean Tasker, we've had Millie Bishop, Dr. Stevens. So it's not like we're not trying to address it and to talk to people and discuss it. I just think,
if you want the right answers, go to the people that are
go
at
to
the
the experts.
coalface
Exactly.
of the experts. That's exactly right.
And I think everyone here, we put ourselves out there doing this. Now, have an opinion on a player is just an opinion. All right? I don't think Riley O'Brien and Lockie Murphy are good enough to be on AFL lists because they're just not consistent producing players. That's fine. That's my opinion.
You're an Adelaide supporter.
Yeah.
Now, I'm a Carlton supporter.
Yeah.
I could probably pick 2 players from Carlton who I think are exactly the same.
But what I'm
Port
saying
Adelaide
out
and so on.
But what I'm saying out of that's just an opinion, which means nothing. It's just an individual's opinion. If you're going to go out there on concussion, do your research.
Yep.
Admit it's not your area of expertise. And I'll be honest, here I was really disappointed with the Mongrel Punt Facebook page on an area which, just be honest and admit, hey, hang on, no, we don't really have the expertise here. You might know a bit more and you may have done a bit more research, etc., might have a few more contacts. And anyone who then writes, oh, you should get a waiver, to quote a comment back from a lawyer, was saying, well, they obviously haven't spoken to an actual lawyer. If they're claiming they have, it's one on work experience because waivers don't apply. So that's enough on that. I lost a lot of respect on that one.
Fair call. All right, let's get into Around the Grounds.
Around the Grounds.
On the Round the Grounds agenda today, we've got the AFL Hot Topics, the SANFL, the netball and the tennis, but we'll kick off with Adelaide first. Huge win for Adelaide in the scheme of things as far as a club trying to, sort of put themselves back on the right track, but it's come at a cost, some injuries to some key players.
Yeah, Butts is the one, so he misses the rest of the year now. Now, Murray, it looks like he's escaped serious damage. They're now saying that he's a test for this week. So, look, if he comes up as well, and I think Worrell's a test coming back from his injury, his wrist injury. So all of a sudden they mightn't be quite as bad off there as they thought they were going to. And Key's not getting cited when they thought he was probably going to be. So overall, I think they've probably escaped that a bit better there than they thought they were.
Yep. Let's have a listen to Matty Nix and see what he thought about it.
Matthew, you lose your 2 key fillers in defence, you skipper for a large chunk of the last quarter, and Rory Laird's pretty banged up late. How proud are you of that gritty win?
Yeah, well, incredibly proud. That makes it even more so. Laddie's playing forward. We had Brody Smith early in the game that had some soreness, and when we lost Muzz, he gritted it out for us and said, "I'll keep going." So, yeah, anyone over the age of 21 seemed to be going down pretty sore tonight, which challenged us, but it gave an opportunity for some of our younger guys to step up. And we sat down post game, and we normally go through some KPIs and look at what we did well and where we didn't. And we sat there and said, you can't measure grit. There's no stat for it, but I reckon we won it tonight. So that was the most pleasing part of the game.
So Matty Nick's obviously talking about grit there, and that's somewhat I see as his coaching philosophy, isn't it? That hard in and under, contested ball, a bit like Sydney of 10 years ago, really.
Yeah, it is. There's no doubt about that. But I also thought it was interesting that Dowling and Taylor, two guys who a lot of people have seen saying should have been given opportunities far earlier,
are now getting opportunity.
Are finally forced through things and stood up. Now, Dowling, for mine, should have played right from round one just about. And I thought Taylor showed it. And KRIEVS is another one who's now, because of injury, he's got an opportunity, and he's been really good.
Mm-hmm. So does that...
Young Bond's been good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very good at stopping, no doubt about that. So he's been a bit of a revelation as well. So I think it showed that, hang on, we don't have to keep going with the Brody Smith. I think Brody's been... I would have dropped Brody weeks ago.
But he's a magnificent servant of the club.
Yeah, I get that.
And they need a little bit of age stability, but you're right.
Yeah.
Does this change Adelaide's philosophy a little bit in the way that they think? Because that's going to have to be the biggest change for Adelaide, is that they get all these young players in who we think are good enough at the level. We don't see them for a long time. They get frustrated. They leave. They go play for someone else and generally play pretty well. Is it a case of now that they've given these guys an opportunity, they've seen that, just put a little bit more faith in them?
I just think in terms of trying to move forward for the future, and that was one thing, if you actually go to M. Blight, he was youth. He picked Andrew Eccles in a prelim final after he played reserves to SANFL reserves for Nord 2 weeks earlier. So things like that hasn't happened at Adelaide for a long time. And I do think hopefully this is a time we go, hey, let's just not keep going with the tried Lockie Murphy, etc.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that leads me into my next question. Adelaide have got some injury concerns now. Who potentially is a couple of players to fill the void down back?
Well, hopefully Worrell comes up. If Worrell comes up, I think he'll come straight back in.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's one. Look, they may have a look at Murray's brother as well.
Well, this is what I was going to ask, whether the Murray's brother might get an opportunity there as well.
He may. If he doesn't come up.
Would a Himmelberg going back
I would much rather
be an option?
I personally would much rather have Himmelberg play running straight ahead. He's got the turning circle of a QE2. Have him run straight ahead.
Because Walker will... We assume
Hopefully
Walker will come back in. We haven't obviously seen the teams just yet, but if Walker comes back in, that fills up that forward line with Thilthorpe, Fogarty, Walker and Himmelberg. Doesn't work.
No.
The short one player down back, maybe Himmelberg's the man to be the swingman. And I think he has played that role once or twice before.
Oh, only a
from
little
memory?
bit. I think he should have been used far more there. I'd much rather have a look at him there, personally.
Yep. So they've got some contract concerns, Adelaide, at the moment. And
they've got players to decide on.
Yeah.
Play him down back. I'd play Himmelberg down back for a few weeks and have a proper look at him.
Absolutely. Well, you've got Cook,
especially with Butts
Smith
is now out for the year.
You've got Cook, Smith, Burgess, Himmelberg, Bond, Borlays, Gallant, Scholl, McHenry, Parnell, Berry, Walker, and Hamill, all out of contract. Well, who out of those ones are you keeping, mate?
No, still a few up in the air. I'd rather go through it properly. But for mine, Burgess is bemusing because he grew up as a youngster playing mainly down back. Adelaide recruited him to play down back, and then
they've thrown
ended up forward. Yeah, and it's bemusing.
Absolutely. For me, I think Berry's having an outstanding season so far. Any concerns that they might lose him?
Oh. All of a sudden, probably a month ago, you would have said, well, big deal. But he's been good the last few weeks and has been stepped up.
Yep.
If he's going okay, there's still a lot to play for in the next few weeks. So let's wait and see.
We'll revisit that one as we go along. All right, let's move on to Port Adelaide. Port Adelaide shook off a persistent Richmond at the Adelaide Oval. And, Kenny Hinckley had something to say to his Chargers at halftime. We'll have a bit of a listen to that.
You had some words with the midfield group at half-time. What was the messaging towards them?
I was explaining to them I wasn't that happy with the way they were going as a collective. And I've built great relationships at this footy club with my players and all our staff, and you do it for those reasons, so as that you can withstand some direct feedback, and that was direct. And it was challenging for the group. But if you look through the reflection of the numbers in the second half, you'll find a really, really big response. See what we're able to do to Richmond's midfield and then continue on with our midfield effort. And I think rarely do you go too hard nowadays, but the reality was it was a moment that we were fighting for our season and we weren't going to sit there and cop that.
Kenny letting out some frustration there at halftime. Is it a concern that he's having to sort of temper the players' anger, I suppose, on the field and then in the change room let rip and trying to get the best out of his players?
I've got no problem with that. His strength has been with relations. He is respected massively within the playing group, not by the supporters, but massively within the playing
and
group.
the AFL too.
Yeah,
because
he is respected within the footy industry,
Yep.
big time.
Yep.
So, yeah, I've got no problem with having me a crack. And look, I can guarantee that there's a certain Norwood Premiership coach in N Bassett. Geez.
Yep.
There's still paint peeling from
off the wall
down there one day at Richmond at Woodville West Torrens with Dean Turlich. So these things happen.
Yep. Is it a concern that some of the cracks are just starting to show a little bit with Port Adelaide with him personally?
I think
that's the way I looked at it. I look at what he did as a totally okay football thing, because coaches are going to have their spray no matter whether it's training, whether it's after the game, before the game, whatever, to get their players in the right frame of mind. I get that totally, but I'm probably angling a little bit on the pressures are getting to him.
Oh, look, you would think that he would have said, right, guys, it's pretty obvious. My future's on the line. Now, if we don't improve, I'm gone, but don't think it won't be some of you guys as well. So, look, they're not playing getting paid a pie and a pasty wage. Personally, I've got no problem with it.
Yep.
We wait and see wait and see how they go for it tomorrow, Friday night. Big game against Carlton.
Yeah, we'll talk about that one in a little bit. Port Adelaide, Radaglia, is he a liability for the Power moving forward in the back line?
The amount of errors he makes, and
is that a confidence thing though?
I don't think I'm not convinced on his footy smarts is probably the way personally.
Yep.
Look, he had only played 70-odd games in 6 or 7 years. It's not like he's ever dominated the competition. So
Port recruited him obviously as a big-bodied backman. Fitting into the Port Adelaide system may not be working for him, because you do have Aliir obviously starting to just show a little bit more form in. Yeah,
I also think too that I found it a little perplexing that, hang on, you're recruiting a guy who's probably pretty similar to Aliir, that their main things there are athleticisms. Their best roles to +1, which is, let's be honest, is all of our best roles.
Yep.
And Dirk Thatcher was a little bit there, questionable as well. So they've certainly gone out on their limb on a couple of fringe players, and
could potentially cost Kenny his job.
Well, it's a big thing. You very rarely see that fringe guy go to another club and dominate. Look, there's one who is Hawthorn Masno, D'Onofrio, however you pronounce it, from Essendon, has gone and he's dominant. Statistically, he is the AFL's best wingman at the moment.
Yep.
So he's been massive. So but there aren't that many examples where that happens.
Yep. Zach Butters, once again in the headlines for a total amount of fines of $36,200 for his career, which is now the number one in the AFL.
Amusing skit by GWS with Toby. Toby happy that someone had overtaken him.
Yes, and I think a bit of fun being had by all that he needs to find himself a good wife to stop him from getting fined so much, to try and keep some money in the pocket. But that's a staggering amount, and we've talked about it previously over the last couple of episodes, sort of saying that hey, once it gets to a certain threshold, it should automatically be a game no matter
I'm
what.
very
Because
firm
he's
on that.
getting fined for the
it's a
same
joke.
things.
It's farcical. He should have been suspended by now. It's ridiculous.
Yep. And my last one on Port Adelaide is Charlie Dixon, showing a little bit of form, but Georgiadis is really the number one man, and I reckon he's taken over the number one mantle from Marshall at the moment.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Yeah.
Yep. No, he's the number one at the moment. And look, let's be real. Richmond are bottom. Yes, they beat Adelaide here, but Adelaide, that was 14th versus 17th at the time. So it's not like they've beaten a world beater, and the game was still up for grabs late in the third quarter. Yes, they did pull clear in the last quarter, but I don't think you can get too carried away with Port at the moment.
Not at all. And we'll talk about the games for this week, but coming up against Carlton, who the statistics say that they're right in that window of pressure acts and scores from turnovers. So, geez, they wouldn't want to mess this one up. But we'll talk about that one a little bit more in a minute. Let's talk some more AFL hot topics. Some injuries are starting to catch up with the Sydney Swans. Papley and Rampy compound the losses in the last 4 weeks. They've lost the last couple by only a small amount, but
they've
some
now
of those
lost
statistics.
4 games for the year by a combined total of 10 points. Yeah. So it's quite staggering that. Look, I think the one was Mills comes in, first game, and then he misses the next one, supposedly through rested general soreness. So in other words, no, his body's not right yet. So Parker did come in. Look, I still think they're actually going to that game on Sunday, Sydney and Western Bulldogs.
Oh,
so,
nice.
Yeah, I'll be there on Sunday for that game.
Fantastic.
Going over to run an Adelaide Uni Footy Club past players function in Sydney, a lunch in Sydney first, and then off to the G. So thank you.
Should be enjoyable.
Off to the SCG, I meant to say. Yes. So, looking forward to it. Not looking forward to the 6 o'clock flight, but that's all right. That's life.
Take the good with the bad.
Yes. So, they'll be there. I think Brisbane's another one which is interesting. So you've got Harris Andrews and Joyce and Payne are all out this week. So they're talking about Hipwood playing down back for the first ever time. So that's against Gold Coast. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's an interesting one as well now.
Well, Gold Coast are at home. So anyway, we'll talk about that one in a minute as well. Is the premiership hangover real for Collingwood? Because in 2020, Richmond finished 12th. In 2021, Melbourne went out in straight sets. Geelong finished in 2022 12th. So Collingwood are in that area, aren't they? You have to expend so much energy to win a premiership these days, don't you? And backing it up seems to be the hardest part.
Yeah, and injuries have caught up, and they're going to have to make some big decisions on players. You know, Pendlebury, side bottom, Howe. There's no way all those three can go around again. Mm-hmm. So they're going to have some decisions to make.
They're in the same boat as what Adelaide were a few years ago with some of their older players. They need to make a call pretty quickly. Macrae's in uncharted territory. Yeah. Sort of took over. They had the spike where we thought they were going to finish, bottom 4, bottom 5, and all of a sudden they made the finals. Then they had that 2-year run where, they won every game within a couple of points of coming from behind.
Extraordinary.
It is catching up with them quick, and the AFL industry doesn't slow down for anybody, does it?
No, it was a reasonable comment, I think, about their list where it said it's got a lot of older guys, probably lacking some in the middle range, and then it's youngsters probably aren't ready yet. So, there's their list dynamic. And look.
And Richmond are a little bit like that too, aren't they?
Yeah. What they gave up for Ginnivan is really come back to bite them on the bum. And Fremantle look like they're the huge winners out of that because they've got Collingwood's first rounder for this coming year out of it now, which is going to be far higher than what we thought.
Absolutely. All right, you've let it in beautifully there. Jack Ginnivan plays up to the crowd. Is this a good thing or a bad thing for football, mate?
Well, we all complain that there's not enough characters anymore. There's not a Grenville Dietrich,
Mark Jacko Jackson.
Things like that. An Ian Stasnowski having a cigarette at 3/4 time, etc. And, caught up with Stas one day and we 4 hours later staggered out of a pub. These things happen. So we complain that doesn't happen anymore. Well, Ginnivan's he's entertaining.
Yep.
And at the moment, he's backing it up. Like, he dominated the game. So when someone dominates the game, now he leaves himself wide open if he then has a couple of stinkers. Mm-hmm. But at the moment, you walk the walk, talk the talk, he's doing it.
And that Hawthorn team at the moment is up and about. And I think they're enjoying celebrating some of that success because everybody had written them off. I mean, I must admit, I wasn't sure about what could happen, but I didn't think they'd be where they are, winning, 9 out of the last 11 games.
Suddenly they're a chance, big chance.
And they could potentially make the finals.
Yep.
I think if they do, they'll become everybody's second team, if that makes sense.
Yep, agreed.
Hoping that they go a little bit further.
Yep.
Essendon, we did talk about Adelaide and Essendon a little bit, but they missed a big opportunity, and it looks like it could cost them a final spot, which is almost in the same position as they were last year, where things went downhill very, very quickly towards the end of the year.
How bad was Ben McKay about 10, 15 minutes of the second quarter? He caused, I think it was four errors, 4 goals. He had a stinker of a second quarter. Look, I think we all kept going at Essendon. Not 100% sure.
Yep.
And, geez, big question marks on him at the moment.
Absolutely. Josh Carr takes his name out of the running for the West Coast job along with Dean Cox. Is Hinkley a chance?
If he wants it, he may, but he mightn't want that list. And look, you wonder if both Carr and Cox have looked and gone, hang on. It's a big rebuild, this list. Jump aboard here.
Hinkley
3 or 4
had to
years.
do the rebuild with,
I know.
with Port Adelaide.
But it's probably there. If Hinkley gets this job, they're probably going to prepare a bit more there. He's in that, but both Carr and Cox might go, hang on. You get appointed here and you bomb, you bury yourself. And you get pretty well paid as assistant coach. Then Cox might just be pretty happy in that life.
Well, I know he's got family interest, and I think his wife's got a business in Sydney, so he's comfortable where he is. And Sydney might have already succession plan in place for when Longmire decides. And I think Longmire gets as much rope as he wants as to when he decides that he goes or doesn't go.
But Dean may have decided. We don't know. He may have decided.
Yep.
Not sure if I want that job.
Fair call.
That will be a question to Andrew Pridham when I interview him a couple of weeks on that.
Absolutely. All right. The Rising Star nomination for this round in round 18 was Nick Watson from the Hawthorn Footy Club. They call him the Wizard.
Surprised he hadn't got a nomination by now, actually. So
agreed. But boy, oh boy, some of his highlight packages, you'd think that he's a player that's played 50, 70, 80, 100 games.
I think also he had been doing that for a bit but he kept missing. I think he had... like 1 goal, 9 overall at one stage. So all of a sudden he's kicked a couple of those that are going through.
Yep.
Then your profile lifts. So.
I did hear an interview with him that Sammy Mitchell's actually been taking him aside before training, working on his kicking. I mean, Sammy Mitchell was a pretty fair kick of the ball himself. So
both feet too.
Yeah. So if you want anybody to listen to, that'd be the man.
Yep.
All right, mate, let's take a very, very quick break. When we come back, we're obviously going to talk the SANFL, the netball and the tennis.
You're listening to the Game On Podcast. We'll be right back after this short break.
A dents and scratches putting a dent in your day? Introducing Roger Steen Crash Repairs Adelaide, your trusted solution for automotive woes. With over 2 decades of expertise, Roger Steen Crash Repairs guarantees top-notch service, restoring your vehicle to its former glory in no time. From minor dings to major collisions, our skilled technicians handle it all with precision and care, using state-of-the-art equipment and techniques.
Roger Steen Crash Repairs saved my car. It looks brand new.
Fast, friendly and reliable. I wouldn't trust anyone else with my vehicle. Don't let accidents slow you down. Visit Roger Steen Crash Repairs Adelaide at 14 Penner Avenue, Glynde, for quality service you can count on. And here's a special offer just for our listeners. Mention this podcast and receive a $100 discount on your repair. Roger Steen Crash Repairs Adelaide. Excellence in every repair.
All right, before we get on with the SANFL, the netball and the tennis, let's get some tips, mate, for the AFL this weekend. Carlton v Port Adelaide.
I'll go Carlton.
North Melbourne v the Geelong Cats.
Geelong.
Suns v the Lions at Heritage Bank Stadium there, mate.
I'll go Lions, but with no confidence.
Yeah, I'm going to be in the same boat, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's a tough one at this stage. St Kilda v Essendon, this becomes a huge game.
Yeah, I'll still go Essendon. I don't trust St Kilda.
Yeah, well, St Kilda could pull one out of the bag.
Yeah, without Max King, I still think he's still their key player.
Yeah, fair call. And Philippou's now injured, and
Yeah.
it makes it a little harder.
Yeah.
But stranger things have happened. Melbourne v the Giants.
Ooh. I'm going to go the Giants.
I'm going to go the Giants there at the MCG, but again,
Yeah.
it's a bit of a ladder shaping round with a
massive.
couple of these games, isn't it?
Massive.
Fremantle v West Coast in the Derby.
Yeah, Fremantle.
Collingwood v Richmond.
Collingwood.
Collingwood for me, just. Sydney v the Bulldogs.
Because it's in Sydney, I'll still go Sydney.
And you'll be at that game,
Yep.
as you've already
Yep.
mentioned. And Adelaide v Hawthorn. This one promises to be a bit of a lip-smacking game or licking the lips game, but probably Hawthorn at this stage.
Yeah, I'll go Hawthorn.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, let's move on to the SANFL. Fantastic results for Norwood, getting up over Central Districts.
Where Harry Boyd played one of the most dominant individual games I've ever seen.
Mhm.
I'll go back to a couple others. Josh Glenn kicked 7 against Centrals in 18, I think it was.
Yep.
And Michael Aish kicked either 6 or 7 in the 84 elimination final,
yep.
ruck roving. But Boyd had 48, he had 30 touches, 17 clearances. It was extraordinary. Like, very rarely do you leave a game and I thought so-and-so was best on ground. I thought so-and-so.
You
Everyone
weren't questioning it.
Everyone just went, well, I put my 3 best Nord players for the weekend as H. Boyd, and H. Boyd.
There you go, the
Yeah,
3-2-1.
It was incredible.
He would have got full maximum coaches' votes as well.
Yeah,
And a man who's been on our podcast before, Jackson Callow, was the benefit of a few of those ruck taps, not directly to him, but the next.
Yeah, Jacko
the
kicked 3, and
yeah.
his touch, his movement, he's getting a bit more confidence back in his body. Now we just need him to kick the bloody thing straight. That's the query with Jacko.
But years still got a little ways to go. Good chance to get it right before the finals. Anyway, what do we make of Centrals, mate? They've been around the mark most of the year, but we're a little bit disappointing. And it was one of those days where it was just wet and soggy, and
It turned out better than expected because
Yes.
I got to Nord and it was raining when it parked. Get out my car, sort of begrudgingly start to walk in it.
Yep.
So I'm walking on the side street, dead opposite the Red League, where the old Red Leagues Club used to be with the units. It has started absolutely pouring. So I sheltered there for a bit, eased off the fraction, walked over. No, I'm going to have to walk around to the scoreboard. So I did get wet. I'm thinking this is going to be
a long day.
Brick of a day.
Yep.
And it actually stopped, eased off, clothes dried out, and didn't rain again. So, yeah, it was better than expected.
It was a good old-fashioned winter's day, really, for football.
Yeah. Look, and Central's ruckman got injured early in the year, and that's really hurt him. And to Harry Boyd's credit, he treats every game and every contest fair dinkum, and he just
Premier
he didn't ease off.
Yep.
Yeah, AFL go overboard on height. It's farcical that he's not on an AFL list.
We could talk about that for a long, long time. West Adelaide, a big surprise over
Yeah.
Woodville West Torrens. Woodville are struggling to score after quarter time at the moment.
Yeah, their forward-line's fallen. Yeah, it's a bit amusing. Weckett getting injured's hurt him, but you wouldn't have thought as much as it has. Look, Westie's credit. Now, let's be fair. It's a bit stupid, the term won the wooden spoon. You don't win the wooden spoon.
No.
They've come bottom the last 5 years.
Yep.
They're not going to come bottom this year. So, Westies, while it's still unlikely they'll make the 5, they're an outside chance, and they're improving.
That's
So
the
good on
key
'em.
word, isn't it? That they are taking those steps
Good on 'em.
forward. That is actually giving them a little bit of hope for the future.
Yeah,
Adelaide,
well done to Adam Hartlett and West
absolutely.
Adelaide in general.
Yeah, I agree. North Adelaide going down to Adelaide, looked like an even contest early on, but then the Crows got a hold of them.
There's still the bit, if Adelaide have enough, Adelaide and Port as well, if they have enough of their AFL listed players, the key number is if you have if you have 10 AFL list or more AFL listed players, you're very competitive. If it falls to 7 or 8, you fall away. And that's where I think it's ridiculous them carry on about leaving the competition. Well, if your players, it's a bit of potluck with injuries, and it is your reserves. I don't get it.
Sturt getting up over Glenelg, probably as we said last week, that game of the round in the SANFL, with a couple of top 4 teams playing, or top 5 teams playing each other. But Sturt out at Thomas Farms Oval, they're a hard team to beat, and I think
I did go for a look.
Yeah,
I did go for a look on Sunday there. Both teams got on top at various times. For as much as we all, analyse footy and all that, Glenelg missed a goal at the 21-minute mark, which would have made it at the third quarter, made it 1 point the difference. Glenelg go down, get a goal from the kick out, get another goal from the centre bounce, where it was probably only shown about Harris's only really bad call for the day. I've got to be fair. I thought the umpiring was okay, but he paid a stinker holding the ball from out the middle.
Yep.
Another goal.
Yep.
And that really changed the game. So suddenly they were 4 up at three-quarter time. And then Glenelg kicked 4 points. The first 4, I think it was the first 4 score, 3 of the first 4 scores of the last quarter. So they had their chances, but blew it a bit. But at times, they looked the better side. But again, Sturt were up 6-1. Glenelg's slow starts is hurting them.
Yep. So. And that's something that they'll be looking to turn around before the finals. But now the top 3 looks like it's sorted itself out now, from 4 right through to 6, maybe 7. Anything could happen.
Yeah, I don't think Glenelg is certain he's for that top 3 yet.
Okay. Well,
big game this week.
Woodville have got to turn their season around a little bit. Centrals have got to find a little bit of form, and they're probably the 2 teams that could seriously challenge them. But anyway, and the Panthers getting up over Port Adelaide.
Yeah, I did. As Port got injuries in their AFL bit this week, I thought, and then I looked at the sides. I did actually end up tipping South.
Yep.
So, yeah, well done to the Panthers, and Port are back on the bottom. So, South pretty keen to avoid that wooden spoon. So,
and they're playing their youngsters, and they're playing some players that
they have to. They've
exactly
had their amount of injuries this year has been extraordinary.
Yep.
To have 2 guys against Nord where they were waiting for 2 ambulances with collarbones was bizarre.
Yep.
And one of them, no joke, he was on the green
pen
bit. Oh yeah,
the green pen.
Yeah, poor young Howes. He was horrendous to have to. I just happened to walk past.
Yeah. Well,
it was just one of those things.
I'm sure you heard plenty.
And
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to this week's games. Round 16, probably match of the round for me. Glenelg v Norwood at Stratorama Oval or Stadium.
Yeah, it's a toss the coin. Down there, Nord's record at the Bay is not good.
Nope.
It's poor, but I'll say at the moment, Nord. I think Nord can get up.
Yep.
Obviously, I hope so.
Well. Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I think it's going to be a tough day out. Weather-wise, at the moment, we had sunshine today. It could be raining tomorrow.
Yeah.
Grounds are a little bit heavier than usual, but I thought most teams handled it pretty well last week. So you're right. Hoping it's Nord as well. All right, the Bulldogs v the Roosters.
Out at the Ponderosa.
It is at the Ponderosa.
Yeah, both sides are a bit of a question mark. I'll go the Dogs.
I'll go the Dogs at home there. Sturt v Port Adelaide.
Sturt
for me. Panthers v the Bloods. That's an interesting game.
Yeah.
Bit of a head scratcher there.
I'll go the Bloods.
I will go the Bloods, West Adelaide there to continue their good form at the moment. And the Eagles v Adelaide. Adelaide are going to be missing a few.
Yeah, but I think they get a couple back. Crouch is all of a sudden to come back.
Yeah,
now,
where did that come from?
Yeah, that's quite extraordinary.
Yep.
So Worrell comes back, so it's another player there. So, I'll go Adelaide. I think they're going to
Adelaide in the upset.
Yeah, I think they're going to end up with enough available.
I'm going to go at the Eagles at Montine Oval there, or Oval Avenue, and as you say, where the pasties are spicier. I reckon the Eagles will certainly get up on that one there. All right, let's move on to the netball, mate. The Adelaide Thunderbirds are go once again. Finish minor premiers and win their first game against the Melbourne Vixens 68-43, which is quite a big result in a
huge.
major semi-final,
Huge.
and now they've booked themselves into a back-to-back grand finals, basically.
As many footy songs around, did we win? No, we shit it in. Yeah.
Fair
Yes.
call. Obviously, the advantage now is that they get to play a home final, which
grand
was
final.
already predetermined beforehand. At the Entertainment Centre. It's been moved back there on Saturday the 3rd of August at 6:30 p.m. Get your tickets, people, because I reckon this is going to be one of the hottest tickets in town,
It will be.
It will be fantastic if they can go back to back. All right, let's move on to tennis. Rafa making a last-ditch effort to be at his best for the Olympics, coming runner-up in a tournament in Sweden.
Can't say he doesn't keep having a crack, can you? All the best to him.
Look,
I won't,
he's in the twilight of his career. Let's
won't
be
back
honest.
his body to hold up.
Yeah. I mean, he's going to love playing on clay.
Yeah.
It's back at the side of the French Open. He's got some good memories there, but geez, I hope he goes all right, considering, it's going to be one of the last times we see him on court, and this might be it. This might be his swan song.
Yep.
We're going to talk Australian tennis player Alex de Minaur. Will he be fit for the Olympics? Because his sudden exit at Wimbledon makes me wonder whether he's going to be fit enough.
He says he is at the moment, but I still have my grave doubts.
Yeah, fair enough. And Alex is now number 6 in the world. Huge 2 months at the French Open and Wimbledon.
Yeah. No, and it was just so disappointing. We don't know what would have happened at Wimbledon against Novak. We knew as soon as that match point, we actually apparently did it 2 points to go. He managed to get up still to get through that last game.
Yep.
So, yeah.
It's going to be interesting, but certainly an Australian player inside the top 10 and just incrementally getting that little bit higher, so it's fantastic. All right, mate, we're going to take another quick break. When we come back, past players, past legends, Des O'Dwyer, part 2.
Past players, past legends, past legends.
After spending a couple of weeks back from the busted collarbone, and I thought, that's when I thought. So I walked over the road and saw Wally and said, look, I think I might be done, Wally. And he said, yeah, look, well, I'll do what I can for you. I walked out into the car park and James Fantasia's in his car just hovering around because he was at Woodville already.
Yep.
And they trained Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And so so he happened to be just popping through this day and still mates with a lot of us, of course, and still is to this day, and he runs the joint. But he said, look, I'll let Blighty know. And so I thought he was joking. And by the time I got home, Johnny Reid had already rung my home, and cut a long story short, signed, sealed and delivered by the Friday, played on the Saturday in the reserves for Woodville, and off we went. So, yeah, a couple of weeks after that, I think it was Gary Williams that was playing fullback for Woodville at the time, popped his hamstring, and Blighty said, look, you'd be prepared to play defensive, play back. And I said, mate, I'll play anywhere if I get a league game. So, and the rest is history. I went and slotted into fullback and had a really good finish to 86. We played in that final series, and I played full back and stood some great full forwards, and we did okay. Should have gone on, of course, and won it, but that didn't happen.
Yeah.
We were just too good, and they went back to back, 85, 86. So
I do want to ask you, so the elimination final, Jim
Teal,
the late Jim Teal.
that was tough.
Yeah, how did you and Fanta sort of cope with that? So it was a little bit different for you. I'm trying to see where you were at, because I've spoken obviously to quite a few of the Nord guys, and they said a few of the older guys who were close to Jim were just an absolute mess, and basically we were not. And Barmy admits if he had his time again, he would totally do that whole thing differently. He said he was very open. He said he didn't do it well. And then
look, how do you do it?
Exactly.
That's uncharted waters.
Well,
mate.
Port did it with Anthony Williams, and he said, I couldn't do it that way, but he does regret that day. And so, but it would have been so where the Nord guys went in front of the scoreboard.
I remember that. Yeah.
So I'm sure you would have been looking over with Fanta, sort of thinking, geez,
So I remember. So both James and I, we were discussing during the week, can we wear armbands, black armbands or something? We just didn't know what to do. And I just vaguely remember, I think Blighty said, look, we're not individuals. We're a team. And it's sort of club policies, I suppose, when they do that sort of stuff. So I think Blighty just thought it's best for the Norwood Footy Club to do their thing, and we've got to respect that. So I don't think. I mean, I know James and I both stood there for that minute silence together, and we were both. It was really difficult. It was really difficult, and then once the siren sounded, we sort of got on with it, and I remember I stood Peter Lachlan that day, and I know he was. I felt for him because he was probably Jimmy's best mate or thereabouts, and so that was a tough day, and it was a terrible, terrible accident, of course, and sadly missed Jim, that's for sure.
So let's go to the next week. Incredible crowd, all of a sudden, Woodville's everyone's second side. Everyone's jumped aboard the Woodville bus. So, probably that and the Escort Cup game were similar, 30-odd thousand, and there way more people barracking for Woodville. Describe those couple of games. It was pretty remarkable.
Look, it was the whole build-up. Like, I think round 10, Woodville was still on the bottom of the ladder. So it just turned on a dime, and I think the record shows, and Malcolm, you check this, I think out of the last 13 games, I think we won 11 of them.
11,
something like that, and we were winning games from losing, impossible positions, like 7 or 8 goals down, and still winning. And so this sort of stuff, this belief just grew and grew within the group, and I was lucky enough to jump on board as it was just turning, and I could sense this. I could sense this club was on the move. The vibe and the passion around the group was just incredible, which is what you need to win premierships. And when you've got a group that's single-minded, and unfortunately we didn't go the whole way, but obviously that game against Norwood, and then we beat Norwood in the first elimination final, which is one of the powerhouses of the competition. Then we play Port Adelaide in the next week, and we beat them in an absolute cliffhanger, one of the great games. It
was a great game.
Yeah, it was an incredible game. And, I was lucky to play with some great players, and none more than Stephen Nichols and these types, and Kevy Harris and Ronnie Fuller and Andrew Taylor and, Andrew Rogers, Richard Champion, all these fellas are all. It was just an amazing group, and it's just, we weren't far off, just going going all the way. And
was you kicking for goal the next week against? You should have beaten Glenelg in that prelim final. You blew the last quarter. I reckon it was like 2-7 or 2-8. I reckon on memory it was.
Yeah, we I won't name names, but the blokes running into open goal, missing from 25 metres out, set shots. It was very uncharacteristic, because what we'd done previously was kick all those and bury teams. And unfortunately, the Bays always had a little bit of the wood on us, and that wasn't the first time they hurt us. And it had happened over a reasonable period of time, and they did it to us again that day. But look, at the end of the day, they were probably the best. I guess they were potentially the best team. Well, they were the best team because they won the premiership. So. But that was certainly, from my perspective, my little window of probably as close as I got to as to playing in a grand final and possible premiership in at that level. So,
I know that one eats it. Obviously hang around a few of those of the Woodville boys, Detto and Jack and Ronnie Fuller have always considered that was the one which got away. And
86 for sure. And touching on what you were saying earlier in terms of the whole country got on board, like it was. There wasn't a paper it wasn't a newspaper in the land that wasn't sort of, hadn't got on board with it. And, Blighty's got them up, and Blighty had the profile, of course. And once they jumped on, it just went on and on. Like we kept winning, and we got nearly got all the way. So, it was exciting times, and special times for sure.
Well, you've had the 3 Bs, Barassi, Balm, Blight.
Yeah.
Doesn't get it much better than that.
Well, then I had Russell Ebert, of course.
Of course, yeah.
So, in actual funny story, I had an interview with the Could Have Been Champions a couple of years ago, and that's exactly And I said that, they thought that was quite funny. Went through those names, and it is. I'm very lucky to have come across all those guys and played under those fellas. They're icons of our game, and Russell Liebert was so good to me. He nurtured me and taught me a lot, and had 3 years under Russell as well. So. Barmy and Blighty, and great group of blokes for sure.
Was Blighty as eccentric with Woodville as he was, portrayed with the Crows and Geelong?
He could be pretty ruthless as well.
But was he innovative as far as trying different things and thinking outside the square?
Yeah, he was always thinking outside the square, whether it be trying to create things during the week to make training interesting, or break it up in the middle of winter. We'd go and play, go and do 10-pin bowling or table tennis, or just go for a walk somewhere. He was always thinking outside the square, and wasn't scared to give you a bake when need be either, as we all know. So, Blighty was a big influence on me, of course, and gave me that opportunity at full back, of course. So I'll be forever indebted to him for that, for sure.
And going through still then, so 87, what was the 87 season like?
So 87, after 86, we were flying. We're like around 10. I think we were second or even on top, round 10 or something or thereabouts from memory. And then the wheels just fell off. So I was guilty of that as well. My form slipped and I ended up in the reserves as well. And and I think Blighty's probably had his, maybe he was done as well. He'd been there 5 years, and his interests were, I remember his work was taking him away to Sydney, and so Johnny Reid was taking some Friday night training. So it was a factor. We just couldn't get it back on track. I think we played in the final. We made the finals, but we were bounced out in straight sets, I think. And it was a real shame. It's hard to put your finger on why we couldn't keep it going. And I think maybe injuries to a few blokes as well. Maybe I can't. It's a lot. Yeah, it's just one of those funny football things. How things can turn and deteriorate very quickly, and that's exactly what happened. Yeah, and then of course Blighty resigned at the end of '87, and '88 came around. So yeah.
And so go through '88, and then of course the Escort Cup, and I've loved how Dedo and a few of those Woodville guys have made a big thing of that Escort Cup. Not downplaying, like making it, that's the only thing we won, but just playing it the appropriate respect. And Dedo was very firm on that at Russell's funeral at the wake afterwards, and I really respect that.
Yeah, look, it was the whole build up to that was quite fascinating as well, because remember, Russell had been sacked by Port Adelaide at the end of '87 on the back of Jack coming back. So there was lots of Port Adelaide supporters that theoretically, cut up their memberships and blah, blah, blah. And then ironically, of course, with the Escort Cup competition, and back in those days, the Escort Cup comp was a ripping pre-season comp. And, it was for Port Adelaide, it meant nothing, but for the rest of us, it was a premiership. So, but, I remember leading into that final, the build-up was all about, Jack versus Russell. So, and it created some momentum, of course, and generated the public's interest, and we ended up with a pretty big crowd there.
Oh, it was 30 something. It was 33, I think, on memory.
Yeah, on a Tuesday night on a Tuesday night for a trial game, unheard of. So, and look, we had a great night that night, and had a good win, and that was Woodville's only ever piece of silverware as such. So it was pretty special, and we did have a reunion for that back in 2018, and Russell. One of the things that happened that night, Russell being Russell, and so dedicated and blah blah blah, he said, "Righto, we're not going to celebrate tonight. Everyone's got to go home to bed, and we'll celebrate after we beat whoever it is on Saturday. I think it might have been playing West Adelaide at home or something." And so, okay. So that was all pretty disappointing. There was like 400 or 500 people back at Woodville Oval, and all chafing at the bit to see the players get presented to the hordes, and of course it didn't happen. And anyway, they were all pretty disappointed. Obviously, we were disappointed. Russell didn't understand it at the time. But when we had this reunion back in 2018, it was quite cathartic for Russell, because it was really the first time we'd actually been truly presented to the Woodville faithful. How many years later? So, and he said that night, that afternoon, and he was able to say his piece and apologise to us and apologise and admit that it was a mistake. He said, and as you know now, you've got to celebrate your successes as you go. Otherwise, why you're doing it? So he was. It was really. Matter of fact, he gave me a call that night, because I was one of the lads that was pulled that night all together, and he rang me and he said, "Desi, that's one of the best footy functions I've ever been to," and he really loved it. So I mean, as I spoke to some Port Adelaide blokes over the years, they said, "You celebrated an Escort Cup premiership? Seriously?" But there you go.
It's one of the last times, obviously, that Woodville was successful in its history. Then, as we start heading towards 1991, the merger, or 1990, the merger was obviously on the agenda, and then in 1991 it happened.
Yes, well, I think it was. I think we knew before the end of 1990 that we were merging. We ended up playing West Torrens,
in the last
ironically,
game.
in the last game at Adelaide Oval, and Alan Jakovic played that day, and I think he kicked 13 to bring up his 100 for the year, and we gave West Torrens a serious touch up that day as well. But unfortunately, we didn't make the finals that year. I think we missed out as well, so which was disappointing. Then the merger, of course, and something like 90 to 100 blokes there on that first training session, and Barmy got the I think they all put in for the job, including who else? I think Andy Bennett was West Torrens, and then of course Russell was us. So they all put in for it, and unfortunately for those guys, or whatever they did, they missed out. But Barmy and Brucey Winter got the gig and got the ball rolling, and it all went pretty well. So we played in the finals of 91 and got knocked out. I don't know where we finished. I think we played 2 finals, so we must have finished in the top 3, I guess. And then, of course...
Well, did you win the Foundation Cup that year as well?
I don't reckon.
No?
I couldn't be sure. I don't think so. No. We might have. I know we played in a couple of finals and we lost. I reckon we lost 2 finals. Whether one of those was with Woodville West Torrens, I can't remember. But we only ever won the one that I remember.
That might have been 93. It had a fantastic year in 93.
Yeah, that's right. I think they won. I think in 93 we won everything. Yeah. But I was done and dusted by then, Pete.
Were obviously that first training session with a million people obviously rolling out. How was the sorting organised with obviously Barmy and some of the coaches, because it would have been pandemonium at one stage?
Yeah, so I mean there was numerous trials. I remember that, and then you'd come to training every other night, and if you were still there, you were still there, and you'd look around and certain blokes weren't there, so you just assumed, oh, he must have got cut. So there was no real public stuff. It was just a gradual a burn, I think, and Barmy and Bruce just went through the numbers, and when they did it, I wouldn't know, but it was a tough job, and they probably made some good calls and some bad calls. The lads that probably could have stayed, should have stayed, and there's some of us that stayed, maybe shouldn't have stayed. So it's difficult when you've got that many numbers in a pretty short space of time to get it right. So at the end of the day, they did a good job.
And it laid the foundations, obviously, for 93.
Yes, absolutely.
And of course, in the end of that 91 season, Scotty Morford ended up stranded on 99 goals too.
Well, he shouldn't have. He kicked about 10 points, I think, that night. But you're right, Malcolm. He couldn't quite get that 100 through the big stick. So, he was a defender turned into a full forward. Unlike myself, I went from forward to defence. So there you go. But he was a fantastic forward. There's no doubt.
Of course, from Woodville West Torrens, did you go straight out to Kilburn from there, Des?
So what happened was, I played 91. I started 92, did all the pre-season, and
that's right.
And then I had this chronic Achilles thing, which was just just literally couldn't put my heel on the ground. I remember that, and then I just thought, you know what, I think I've had enough. I was 33 and just about done. So I actually retired, and that was it. So the funny thing was, I did an interview with Ken Cunningham and Cornsey, I suppose, or who it was, or Hooksy, I can't remember now. And after the interview, within half an hour, I had a phone call from Phil Gallagher, and I hope Phil doesn't mind me telling this story, but Norwood felt that I still had something to offer, which was a wonderful compliment. So I ended up having a meeting with Neil Craig at his home there in Hyde Park, and we had a chat, and then we both went away, and I had to think about it, and I just didn't feel I had the emotional energy to go again and whatnot, and so I said thanks, but no thanks, and ended up going out to the Barossa and Light League actually, and had a couple of seasons out there with Williston, and played under Jamie Thomas out there, and also the second year Terry Barch, who's
Norwood man as well,
Norwood functions as well, So they were two really enjoyable years. Unfortunately, we should have won a flag, but didn't. That's just the way it goes out there, and then in my last season, I won't bore you too much. I ended up at Kilburn with Tony Roach, and that was a close mate of mine, and probably my second cousin. Desi Hicks was there, and he talked me into having one more year, and which I did. And
was that Desi Hicks you'd played with at Woodville?
Yes, same one, and Hicksy was also at Sturt as well. So but we had a fantastic year, and they'd lost the grand final the year before, so they weren't far off it, and we ended up, so my last game was against, I think it was Port District's grand final premiership on Adelaide Oval. I thought, you know what, that's not a bad way to go out. So that was my last game, 1994. So
All right, a couple other things. So Des, did you meet your wife over here or from Melbourne originally, or?
Over here. Met Lorraine here. We met it at some a nightclub. It might have been from memory. I think it was.
You didn't live it was only when the Oaks where you dominated, Des. Yeah, we'll leave that alone.
Yes.
And in the business side, work-wise, full compliment to you. You worked your way up at National. You were the manager of the branch in the Burnside shopping centre there, and don't worry, my mother-in-law still thinks you're the best bank manager there ever was.
Absolutely.
And then you went from there and worked your way up through Qantas. So full credit to you there, Des, that you ended up pretty high up at both.
I only ever had 2 jobs, Malcolm, a bit boring, but no, it was good. No, I had 20 years with the NAB, National Bank, and then ended up, things got a bit tough on the home front with the kids, and Lorraine was a flight attendant, so travelling and she was international, so it got really difficult with my hours at the bank. So we had to make a decision whether I keep going with my career or she goes with hers. And basically, because of the staff travel, I said, well, you're not giving your game away. So I ended up resigning from the bank and then scored a job as a baggage handler at Qantas.
That's right.
That was fantastic. I loved it because it was just, you just went in and you just did your job, and you didn't have to take anything home. So I really enjoyed that. And then sort of, because I guess my finance and background and understanding of computers and things, I found my way into the back office and resource and planning areas of the work group. So which I did for the last probably for 17 years of that. So I only did baggage handling for about 18 months to 2 years, I suppose. And
I do remember you doing that now. Yeah.
Yeah. So and I did the catering as well, night cleaning of the aircraft. So started from the very bottom, which was great.
Hey, righto, Des. So
we finish off
as we finish off the same way. Best players played with and hardest opponents, and you can go whichever way you like on this, mate.
Oh, gee. Have I thought about this? Let me think. Well, I always had some difficulty against the big Rudy Mandermaker when I had to stand him out at Central Districts, and not only did I have to put up with him, but also the supporters out there. So that was pretty intimidating. And once he got up and going, the big fella, he was hard to stop. And the other problem he had, he could kick him from anywhere, and so he was certainly one of the tough ones. Of course, Scotty Hodges, I stood Scotty he was incredibly strong and pound for pound probably the strongest full forward I ever stood. And and then Johnny Fidge, he was a
similar,
superstar as well. I remember Dale Woodhall for West Adelaide. Tony Modra was floating around, but I didn't stand him. I think Robbie Lynch stood in the day he was running around. So, but some great forwards, and then what was the other question? The
best players played with. So you've got to.
Oh yeah,
you've got to go for a few different angles.
You don't have to go one or two. You can go
you
4 or
play
5.
with Flower, go where you like.
Look, well, there's a standout obviously, and there's one for Melbourne, Robbie Flower, and there's a tie for the other two for mine, and that'd be or probably three I guess, or 4. Actually, it's 4. It's hard to go past Michael Aish, Neville Roberts, Keith Thomas, and Gary McIntosh. I mean, all those blokes. I mean, Neville played for Richmond, of course, and we all know Gary should have and could have, if he wanted to, do what he wanted to do. And Keithy, of course, had some time at Fitzroy and cut his teeth beautifully there. And who else I say?
What about Woodville-wise and that side of things,
Woody-wise,
mate?
a standout for mine because I was standing up the other end was definitely Stephen Nichols as a forward. And then, of course, Alan Jakovic was an absolute freak. He could kick him from anywhere. And just could turn on a dime, and it was a nightmare to stand. And when we had practice matches at training, it was a nightmare. So I felt for my colleagues up the end trying to keep him under control. Well, we also had Ralphie Sewer and Kevy Harris was a juggernaut when we were going well in '86 and so forth. So I've had some play with some fantastic players. Richard Champion went on and did well up north with Brisbane, of course. And of course back in my Melbourne days, as I said, Robbie Flower was probably the number one, and Gerard Healy he debuted the same year as me in '78, and I also played. I'm not saying he's one of the greatest, but one of the most interesting characters, of course, was Mark Jackson. I played 5 of my 6 games next in the forward pocket, standing next to him. So,
geez, that would have been interesting.
All he kept saying was, "Desi, get out of my way!" So he was an interesting. I actually played the day he did the handstand and the donkey kick with Kelvin Moore.
Kelvin Moore,
that was it. I think that was at Princess Park from memory, and so there's been some characters along the way. So it's been a great journey.
Just to finish us off, mate, we'll get you out of here on this one. You've obviously played under some great coaches. I know you probably can't pick one of favourite, but maybe 3 of the favourite coaches that you've played under.
Well, favourite coaches, look, they've all had their pluses, of course, and they're all true champion coaches in their own right. It's hard to, really difficult. Probably for mine because I had probably Blighty and Russell for mine, I guess, because I played most of my senior footy under those guys and seemed to gel and feel, at the end of the day, coaching is a difficult thing. And as a player, if you feel comfortable under a coach, you're going to perform better. And, for whatever reason, you don't feel that comfortable under others, that affects you mentally, I think. So, so they're probably Blighty and.
I reckon you better give Roach a mention, otherwise he'll bloody be ringing. He'll ring me and abuse me for not. Him and Gav Lauder, Gav Lauder. Yes, you had the reunion of that one.
Yeah, that was a great day. Yeah, we had a reasonable contingent of our '94 premiership side, and Roachy was there, of course, and. He certainly ran a tight ship, and which you needed to at Kilburn in those days. Trust me. So he was a fabulous coach, and
umpiring in front of the Mound Men's one of my most interesting experiences ever in sport. Desi, yes.
Going on the pub crawl after the premiership win was mine with the Mound Men.
With the Mound Men, geez, I don't reckon I would have survived that
one. One or two of them.
Yeah.
No. Yes. They were good days for sure.
Hey, say hello to your son as well. Say hello to Lorraine. Always enjoyed Lorraine's photos for your trips away. Kept us all entertained. So especially the Lord's ones, etc. So all the best, mate. Greatly appreciated, Des.
No worries, Malcolm, and thanks, Peter. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for joining us, mate.
Catch up soon.
Cheers, mate.
Thanks, Des.
Thanks, boys. Cheers, Malcolm.
And we thank Des there for his time, and in particular the Woodville Premiership in 1988. They're one of the last successes for the Woodville Football Club, but against the old enemy of Port Adelaide.
Yeah, and Ian Detman sort of leads that charge with making sure that's celebrated. And trust me, there's one thing Ian Detman's good at. It's
Celebrating?
It's celebrating. It's Deado's a gun.
Certainly going back over some of the footage and watching some of it, because you do get with this past players, past legends segment, you get an opportunity to go back and watch some of the football. Unbelievable, Footy Park back in the day, night football.
It was incredible. It was 30-odd thousand in a pre-season game on the Tuesday night. When Woodville got in that situation, everyone jumped aboard.
Yep.
Yeah, that was extraordinary.
Fantastic sport. We thank Des once again for his time, and look forward to catching up with him at a past players, past function somewhere in the future.
I'm sure I'll be annoying him.
You're listening to the Game On Podcast. We'll be right back after this short break.
Looking to buy or sell your home anywhere in Adelaide, from the hills to the sea? Meet Gary KRIEVS, your dedicated local agent from OUWENS CASSERLY Real Estate. With unparalleled knowledge of Adelaide's housing market and a commitment to exceptional service, Gary ensures a smooth and stress-free experience for all your real estate needs. Trust the expert, trust Gary KRIEVS at OUWENS CASSERLY Real Estate. Your next dream home awaits. Contact Gary today on 0422 071 317 or on email garyk@ocre.com.au. And for more listings, please visit owenscasserly.com.au. Make it happen.
Happy days.
Quick one there, though. Greatly appreciated with Gary KRIEVS. I did also briefly speak to Craig Steen today. Anyone there looking for a house? Anyone has a prang? Let's be honest. Not only do we all have prangs, but we know someone who has one. Mm-hmm. Please give Steen Crash Repairs a ring.
Absolutely.
They're doing the right thing, supporting us. Get a discount, or if you know anyone in the housing market, KRIEVS is a good bloke.
Absolutely.
Go for it.
Well done, well said, mate. Let's get into happy days. Happy birthday to Chad Wingard, born on the 18th of July. He obviously now plays for the Hawthorn Football Club, but previously for Port Adelaide. He was drafted by Port Adelaide with the 6th selection of the 2011 draft from the Sturt Football Club in the SANFL.
Yeah, currently injured again. He's had a shocking couple of years in terms of injury. You would suspect that this will be it. This year.
Potentially, yep. At 16 and 60 kilograms, Wingard was a member of the Murray Bridge 2009 Imperial Football League team who won the River Murray Football League Premiership, kicking 5 goals, including 3 of the most freakish goals you wish to see. Might have to look that one up, actually, according to his coach. Wingard also played basketball as a child and was captain of South Australia's under-16 basketball team. You sort of notice that with a lot of these AFL players, that they're either very good cricketers, even back in the day, with some of our past players that we've spoken to, cricket, tennis, football, basketball, soccer.
A lot more people played both back then.
Yep, absolutely. Since crossing to Hawthorn, Chad has often dealt with soft tissue injuries, which you've mentioned before there. These injuries have caused him to miss games in every season. Wingard was signed a new contract with Hawthorn for 2024, though he will spend most of 24 in rehab for an Achilles tendon injury in round 22 of 2023.
And his body just keeps letting him down at the moment. Look, he's probably, for everything there, look, he's a good player, but I just think he could have been that bit better.
Yep. Fair call. All right, let's move on to cricket. 1993, one of my favourite players, and I'm sure he's one of yours as well. Yeah. David Boone completes his 17th Test cricket century of 107 at Headingley.
Got everything out of himself, the great little Tasmanian. David O'Bourne, one of our regular listeners, does a fantastic impersonation of David Boone too.
Is that on the flight over to England? Or
He's very good, Booney.
that'll be interesting to talk about that one off air. All right, let's move on. Golf, 1989 Men's British Open Golf at Royal Troon, which was the venue of the British Open there last weekend. American Mark Cavalicia wins his only major title in the first 4-hole aggregate playoff with Australia Greg Norman and Wayne Grady.
Yes, yeah.
Some pretty good names there.
It is, but he came through. And look, while we're talking golf, may have received a message from our illustrious man in Craig Martin.
Yep.
And it's looking like Live Golf will be February 14 to 16 next season.
Valentine's Day. That's going to be a hard choice for a lot of guys to head to the golf course or take their partner out. But anyway, we might follow that one up a little bit more. Tennis, 1994 Federation Cup women's tennis in Frankfurt, Germany. Spain retains the title with a 3-0 win over the US, and Arantxa Sanchez Vicario clinches victory with a 6-2, 6-1 win over Lindsay Davenport.
Yeah.
Some pretty good names there as well.
Again, yeah. Spain. Pretty fair effort by Spain, and I think Arantxa Sanchez had a very good record in that sort of situation.
Yep.
So, yeah, she came through.
Absolutely. And to finish us off today, Nike contracted Nike's Jordan Brand signs 2019 NBA #1 draft pick Zion Williamson to the richest multi-year sponsorship deal for a rookie in history, estimated 7 years at $75 million.
I'm going to have one word, obscene.
Absolutely crazy, isn't it? All right, let's scoot into the extra time big finish.
Extra time, big finish.
All right, let's kick off with cricket. Labuschagne takes 5 for 11 in 2.3 overs.
Yeah. I don't rate his bowling as much as that, those figures. Yeah, and don't worry, he would have been telling everyone too.
Absolutely, the English T20 blast, that is. Adding another string to his bow. Is it something that Australia could use in the future?
Oh, look, possibly. I do think his leggies have been underutilised a little bit. I don't think he's that great, but I do think he can be used a little bit more than just the odd over here or there.
Yeah, fair enough. We'll stick with cricket. Cricket Board's money is revealed. India at $2.25 billion. The next closest is Australia at $79 million. That's a big disparity, isn't it?
And that's where they own world cricket. 78 cents in every dollar in world cricket comes from India. And it's pretty sad that you've got to cut, that you're either, the amount of poverty in India as well is staggering, and yet how much money is there? It's one or the other. And it's always got to,
It's a worry, isn't it?
Yeah, not happy about it.
Yeah. England sitting third on that list with 59 million. Yeah. And Pakistan obviously sitting fourth there at 55 million, almost in the same boat as India as far as the country. But is it starting to show on field with attendances, especially in England and Australia?
Oh yeah, I think so a bit, but also I just think the three countries have got to, and especially India, have got to think of your responsibilities of the game overall more, and that's the bit for mine. And it becomes more and more this 2020 circus, more and more months freezing out for competitions. Yeah, it's a worry as a cricket nut where the game's at.
Yep. We're going to obviously watch that with some interest, especially over the next 12 months. NBA or the basketball, Australian basketball team showing some signs that it should be at the pointy end of the Olympics tournament. Should be.
Yeah, I think that's more a maybe.
Yep.
I've also heard a couple of basketball people of the experts of that say, look, they could actually play well at the Olympics and not win a game in the
group
stage because it's so strong. So it's we're just going to have to wait and see.
Now, I was listening to an American podcast, and I'm actually going to take this name off. I was going to say the Dream Team, and he sort of said, look, if you call it the Dream Team, you should get your ass kicked. So I'm not going to call them the Dream Team, because really the Dream Team is that team from 93 or 94.
When it was ridiculous.
When it was. So this is a totally different outfit. But they're not performing to expectations, but could it be about some of the rule changes? Because the rule changes that are for the Olympics are completely different to what they are from the NBA. Playing. So is it a case of that adjustment period could be the reason why they're not quite playing as well?
Yeah, that's a fair point. It's certainly, it's an interesting point. It's probably a point with a fair bit of relevance.
Yep. One last thing on the basketball, a little bit closer to home. Tim Payne, bit of a cricketer, moving into a consultancy or advisory role with the Tasmanian Jack Jumpers.
It is interesting because his name was being thrown around here at one stage with the strikers and all that as well. So, it's...
we haven't heard anything on that front yet, so
I
might follow that up next week with you, mate.
I might have a
bit of news.
Let's just say the interviews may have happened this week.
Right.
Yes.
All right.
I haven't heard anything else yet, but I wish Ryan Harris all the best.
Yep. Fair call. State of Origin, NRL, mate. Game 3 was an absolute belter for half a game, and then all of a sudden New South Wales blew it out of the water.
Yeah.
And all credit to them winning away from home.
A good result because that creates more interest again. If Queensland has kept winning, now all of a sudden everyone's looking forward to next year instead of, the inevitable Queensland winning again. So I think it's a good result for the sport.
Absolutely. Let's move on to soccer. Attention turns to the Olympics with the Matildas arriving early, but a bit of a mishap with their luggage. You've got to expect it these days, don't you?
Yep. It's not a...
And we had the global IT outage there a couple of days ago, which was at around about the time that they were landing. So, something's gone awry there, but they were there early enough for it to not be too much of an issue.
May have run into Timmy G on Saturday because he'd commentated the
Nord game
afterwards, and he just said it was just incredible because they didn't know at that stage whether it had been a cyber hack, worldwide hack.
Yes.
And that. And he said it was just a ridiculous couple of hours of really on the fly.
Yep. Well, radio stations were going down and TV stations having to revert to old formats.
What was what was on. It's working analog. That people were running out, turning an analog radio to make sure that was working.
Yep.
So he said it was just a ridiculous couple of hours.
It is. All right, we'll stick with soccer. Shea Cale, the son of Timmy Cale there, makes the move from Brisbane Roar to English Premier League Nottingham Forest.
Yeah, all the best there. Certainly will be one purely because of the name. Let's be honest. It's going to get a big following. So all the best, Shea.
And this one goes back a couple of weeks ago, but Argentina wins the Copa America in America there. Argentina win the Copa America after devastating injury leaves Lionel Messi in tears. Is he getting towards the end of his career a bit like Nadal?
Possibly, yeah. As we know, we get older, injuries come through more and more, and that soft tissue stuff, you just don't recover from anywhere near as quickly.
Yep, agreed.
And it tends to happen again.
Absolutely. All right, and just a couple of quick questions to finish us off. Golf, Xander Schauffele has saved his best round of his career after a life
sealing
victory at the 152nd Open.
And he's the form player for the
Olympics
for the season
and the Olympics.
Yeah, a couple. That's 2, I think. Yeah,
2 for the year, which is very unusual. It hasn't
unusual.
happened since McIlroy did it, I think, in 2010. So it's been a long time between drinks. If he wins the Olympics, that almost puts him up there in a class just above some of the players that have won 2 or 3 majors.
Well, it does. I just still think it's ridiculous that tennis and golf at the Olympics.
Yep, fair call.
I've got a problem with that.
Fair call. Is Sammy Mitchell Coach of the Year for the Hawks?
Certainly around the mark. Let's wait and see what happens the last few weeks. But, geez, they're probably the exciting team at the moment. They're the ones which I think, if they're on, you want to watch at the moment.
Yep.
So, yeah.
And last one, mate, Formula One. Oscar Piastri wins his first Grand Prix, but team tactics making the sport... Is the team tactics making the sport suffer?
Yeah, it's a hard one, isn't it?
We don't understand it as much as what some people do, but from afar
it is. You sort of look, but I'm not. Yeah, for me, motor racing is something. It's a passing glimpse. It's not one of. It's not a sport where I'll claim that I'm of knowledge.
But
so
great for Piastri to win.
It's
win it. I get it, but
yeah,
it did leave a little bit of a sour taste. It seems from everybody around that how it works out. All right, mate, we're going to wind things up
one last
there.
bit.
Yep.
One, I'm really disappointed. There's a Friends of Unley Oval Facebook page. It's very, very, very pro anti-fence.
Fence, yep.
Look, there's some stuff there being posted. Untruths is being very kind and being polite compared to what I really think about it.
Mm-hmm.
That, and as I said earlier, anyone, just be honest to your strengths and weaknesses. As I've just said, they're motor racing. Hey, no, I'm not
celebrate
prepared,
it, but don't know enough.
I'm not going to put myself out there.
Yep.
Just be honest to where you stand and what you do know and who your contacts are and who you may have spoken to. Don't bullshit.
We might follow that one up with Sturt next week and see what has actually happened, because I think some decisions are going to come in the next week or two. All right, mate, we are definitely going to wind things up there. It's been a huge episode once again. We thank Des O'Dwyer for his time. We thank our sponsors in Roger Steen Crash Repairs and Gary KRIEVS at OUWENS CASSERLY for their support. And as per usual, mate, we promise to do better next time.
Thanks, mate.
Thanks, mate.
In this crazy world we live in, we all need the distraction. Enjoying the show? Like, rate, and subscribe. Hook up and connect with us on social media at SportsCast SA. We'll see you next time on Game On.